Your college football game day has come early.
Goes down the field for Sicky, goes up high. He's got get away from the cock speed, and the ball is free. Woo! What a hit! You got barbecue back there.
From underdog triumphs to powerhouse showdowns, we've got your winning playbook covered. It's BetQLU with Chris Mack, RJ Choppy, and John Martin. Presented by BetMGM. The sports book born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
Here with you every Friday night and Saturday morning, live coast to coast on the BetQL network. It is BetQLU. Don't forget, you can get us in podcast form. Wherever you get your podcast, just search BetQLU. Always right there inside your free Odyssey app as well, AUDACY. And the Odyssey Sports channel on YouTube is where you can watch the show as well, alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. It is BetQLU, where the refreshment of choice today are Alabama tears. Woo, That'll quench your thirst, gentlemen, right there. Some Bama tears as the CFP 12-team field has been set. We'll go over that. We'll go over something that all of us laughed at a week ago and said, there's no way that's really happening. Bill Belichick to North Carolina. I still can't say it without a straight face. We'll take an early look at those 4 first-round CFP games and the matchups, touch on Army-Navy this weekend as well. If we have time, a trio of really big college hoops games this weekend as well. If we have time as well, Portal, other bowl games, plenty to get to. We'll try to fit all 15 pounds into this 5-pound sack here today on BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. But let's start with the 12-team field. You know by now what it looks like. Clemson steals the final spot by winning the ACC championship game. They will be the 12 seed and head to Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns. Tennessee, the 9 seed, traveling to play the 8 seed Ohio State and Columbus. SMU stays in. I guess technically they're the team that bounces Alabama. They are the 11 seed, headed to face 6 seed Penn State in Happy Valley. And 10th seeded Indiana travels to face another team in state, 7th-seeded Notre Dame in South Bend. So I'll start here, Choppy. What did the committee get right and or wrong?
Well, I think they got it right in general. I mean, if you want to argue that Alabama should be in over SMU, I don't think that you could have a strong case either way. Whatever happened, I don't think you could sit here and say the committee got anything right or wrong. If they had put Bama in and SMU out, I don't think I'm arguing with that, and I'm not going to argue with where they had it here. I think Indiana just got left out of that conversation altogether. That was interesting to me. Of course, they only had 1 loss, though, so maybe they deserved that, and they didn't play in a conference championship game. But, I don't have a problem at all with how the committee wound up seeding things. If you want to say that Ohio State should be ahead of Penn State because they won the head-to-head, not going to argue with you on that one. If you want to say, that Penn State should have been ahead of Texas or whatever, not going to argue with you. But I think largely this is fine. I have major problems with each individual team's respective paths. Okay, not all paths are equal. That's something that's something that you just can't fix here. You can't do anything about that. So I think largely they did a good job.
So let me start here then, John. Do we need to consider how these seeds are handed out going forward, and because that leads to the paths that we have laid out in front of us, like RJ just said. Penn State is the 6th seed, so they'll get SMU at home. Okay, I think most people can live with that based on how the seeding went. It's that they then get Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl if they should win. If you're Texas, I mean, you're the top non-conference champion. It makes sense that you get Arizona State in the quarterfinals should you win. I do understand where Choppy is coming from because I've heard this from a lot of folks over the last week. Penn State, Joel Klatt fairly lost his mind over it on social media. Penn State lost, and they got the biggest gift. Well, that's the way the seeds fell because that's the way the thing is set up. This is a fairly rigid setup based on conference champs are going to get a bye, or the top four conference champs are going to get a bye, and the way the teams fell after that just happened to fall the way they did.
Yeah, I mean, I know there is going to be a push to reevaluate, the format. I don't know what you can do, I mean, I don't know how you tweak it. But yeah, I mean, I understand, that Penn State having an easier road than Oregon is a problem. But I don't think it's a problem that like anybody necessarily created. I don't think it's a problem that was like manufactured by the committee. It's just like you said, it's just how the seeds fell this year, and that's why people were talking about maybe Oregon, tanking the Big Ten championship game, not playing guys because, they kind of saw the writing on the wall. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do about it this year. I don't know how. I mean, I'm sure they'll look at everything every offseason, right? I mean, rule changes are going to come, format changes are going to come, but I'm not really sure what they could what they could do that would address the imbalance just based on how the seeds fell.
I also don't know what they're going to – see, I hesitate to make changes after 1 year. I get it why people see inefficiencies in the setups. I certainly agree that they exist. But you go and make those changes, we don't know if it doesn't work out exactly the way it's supposed to next year, right? Like we just happen to be in a year where the ACC and Big 12 champs were so weakened by their resumes throughout the year that they fell where they did, and it allowed the Mountain West champ, the Group of Five team in this case, to get a top 4 seed. Like that, I think that even though it worked out for the most part, like what we saw this year is more of an anomaly, John, than what we're going to see most years in this 12-team setup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I'm with RJ overall that they got it way more right than they did wrong. I mean, I guess where I would come down officially is like if look, I had that moment watching SMU as they were kind of getting boat race before they made the comeback. Obviously, like if you penalize SMU, who didn't really beat anybody, but won like the games they were supposed to win for the most part, if you penalize them for losing in the conference championship game, well then you know what else you'd have to do. You have to penalize Texas for doing the same damn thing because they didn't beat anybody, right? They didn't beat anybody this year, and none of the good teams. Like they didn't. I guess you want to say Texas A&M on the road, but A&M finished unranked, so I'm not really buying that. I mean, and that obviously could have been a very different game too. So I just think you really didn't have a choice, for the committee. Like you just have to keep SMU in and Alabama out.
Yeah, the way it did this year, it's fine. Like obviously they could reseed. You don't need to do a bracket. The NCAA is obsessed with brackets. And I love brackets. Brackets are fun, right? They're fun because you can see it. You've got your quadrant. You can see it. But, the NFL doesn't do a bracket. They seem to do okay. They seem to do just fine, right? If the Lions have the 1 seed, they don't know who they're going to play in the first round. It could be 3 different teams, really. Yep. It could be so – they have no idea. So it's like to me, the most fair thing to do would be just have it 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to keep the automatic qualifiers, get buys, fine. But then you reseed. So if Clemson wins over Texas, they play Oregon. Simple as that. They don't play Arizona State. Oregon doesn't get screwed by having to play, 2 quality teams. Right. Georgia doesn't have to work. They just play the lowest seed. Lowest seed.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely has to be considered. I didn't understand, to be honest, why they had it set up in a non-reseeded format to begin with. But, again, we'll see how it shakes out. We still got 11 games that need to be played between now and the end of this thing. This is just the setup for it, and you never know how it could shake out. We could end up looking back on it and going, oh, I can't believe you got mad about that. It made sense the way it was. Given that we do have updated national championship odds. We also have, at a couple shops, updated odds to make or not make the playoff semifinals, which kind of leans back on that thread of what the paths look like. Right now, Texas and Oregon co-favorites to win the national championship at plus 350. Georgia 4-1 Ohio State 5-1. If you look at odds to make the semifinals, so to make the Final Four, John, Georgia and Oregon basically even, 136, minus 136, minus 138 respectively. Penn State minus 184, Texas minus 205. Those are the four teams favored to make the semifinals. As you look at these semifinal odds and also national championship odds, are there any numbers that jump out at you that you go, I like the value there?
Yeah, I don't have any semifinal bets, but I did make a national championship future bet, and it was Notre Dame at 10-1. I made that bet earlier in the week before the Carson Beck injury news broke officially. Georgia's cooked. We can talk all day about how great a coach Kirby Smart is, and he is. But any team that loses their starting quarterback at this juncture in the season that's not named Texas Longhorns football is going to be in big trouble. And I think Georgia is in big trouble. I mean, we saw after that initial drive in the first drive of the second half, I mean, Texas adjusted and Gunnar Stockton couldn't really get anything going through one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen at this level, by a Georgia quarterback. So listen, the road for Notre Dame, big favorite over Indiana, obviously. Then I believe it would be would it be Georgia in the next one, or would it be Tech? I can't. I think it might be Georgia. I don't have the
For Notre
bracket in
Dame.
front of me.
Yeah, Georgia.
Yeah,
Georgia.
Yeah. So you get Georgia in the quarters on a backup quarterback, and that would set up, I think, possibly a matchup with Texas, assuming they take care of business. And just not really all that convinced by Texas. I think they have the wrong quarterback in there. So at 10-1, with a field that I'm just not super thrilled about, generally speaking. I think there's still a lot of value on Notre Dame to be who they are, do what they do, run the football, and be physical. So I played them 10-1, and I think it's going to be a fun sweat.
Man, this is tough. Like, because I honestly, I just don't buy Notre Dame as a national title contender. I've seen Notre Dame too many times just get absolutely worked, just too many times. But the problem is, and this is where it really is a good bet. I mean, look at everybody else. Like, I don't trust Penn State. Sorry, Chris. George, he's right. Georgia's got their quarterback issues. So does Texas. Oregon's road to get there is nightmarish.
Brutal.
Ohio State, they're talented, but their road's difficult. I mean, just to get to the finals, they're going to have to go through Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas. That's difficult. That's why for Tennessee to try to get there. I mean, that's brutal.
That's why I like the Notre Dame look. And even though you've got a great point about Penn State and James Franklin's ability to choke in large football games, which even a game against SMU will be because it's a home playoff game, and then a trip out to the desert to play Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Those are two massive opportunities to James Franklin to, Franklin all over himself. Like, we've seen it happen plenty of times in big games. Nonetheless, I like Notre Dame and Penn State on the national championship odds because of the path on that bottom half of the bracket. Again, we're back to talking about paths and brackets because they do get SMU and then Boise State and then Notre Dame. Now, I don't hate the Notre Dame look that John mentioned at 10-1, now 9-1 in a lot of places as well because of that defense. Like, I'm going to be corny, cliched football guy and say, defense wins championships, but it does. And especially in, these neutral site games where the path is laid out for Notre Dame the way it is, Indiana, and then, like you said, a Carson Beckless Georgia, and all of a sudden they get Penn State in the semifinals, and now after a couple of weeks, James Franklin gets a new opportunity to Franklin all over himself. Yeah, it sets up real nice for Notre Dame to at least get to the national championship game. So at 10-1 especially, or 9-1 as it sits now, I don't mind the number at all on the Notre Dame bet. And I wouldn't wait too long to get Penn State as well, because a win over SMU is going to shorten their number significantly as well. And the top half of the bracket, John, is just it's brutal.
Yeah, I actually think I'll end up betting Penn State against the spread in that one. I think it's like 8.5. I think I'll probably end up betting Penn State. I'll wait and see if any SMU love comes in, but I think this in particular is exactly the game where James Franklin is going to roll, right? Against an overmatched ACC team. I could just see them running all over SMU.
We'll see how it shakes out. And, of course, we got another week to analyze these games and handicap them. And at least in the first round matchups, figure out where our bets are going to go. We'll take a quick early look at each of them in just a couple of minutes. Plus, Army-Navy this weekend to talk about as well. And I can't believe it actually happened. We sat here and laughed at it last week, but it is really happening. Introduced Thursday afternoon in Chapel Hill. Bill Belichick, 6-time Super Bowl champ, is going to become the head coach for the Tar Heels at the age of 72, which, fair point, I heard somebody bring up, actually gets them younger at the head coaching position because Mack Brown's 73. We'll get into all that coming up next right here on BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it. I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3.
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game! We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it. I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
Live coast to coast on the BetQL network every weekend for you. It is BetQLU alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy. I'm Chris Mack. Don't forget you can get us in podcast form inside your free Odyssey app, AUDACY. Download it today and take us with you wherever you're going, whatever you're up to this weekend to get ready for the games. We are right there with you. And also watch the show on YouTube on the Odyssey Sports channel as well. BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Army-Navy, we touch on that before the end of the show. If we have time to get to any portal news or hoops games as well. But we got a lot to try and shove into this 5-pound bag here this week, including an early look at the 4 first-round games in the CFP, guys. We touched on the matchups a little bit earlier when we talked about the paths available for each of the favorites, or whether the bracket is set up correctly. Let's push all that to the side now and just look at each game individually, maybe a minute or two on each, just an early look, because we will talk about all these games next week as well. And let's start with the Friday night game in South Bend, the first of the 4 first-round matchups. John, you mentioned a national championship bet at 10-1 on Notre Dame. They are the 7th seed, hosting the 10th-seeded Hoosiers in the first-round game and laying 7.5 at home to Indiana. The extra half point, the hook, is what gets me here and gives me pause, because as great as Notre Dame's defense is, I do think Curtis Rourke has shown an ability to play against all kinds of defenses this year. I guess the closest comp may be Ohio State, but they also managed to hold up against Michigan's defense as well, which, despite Michigan being terrible, was not the worst version of their defense we've seen before. So 7.5 feels a bit much for me, I guess, is where I'm starting with this, John.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Kurt Cignetti and the job he's done. And obviously, we know that he has probably extracted the absolute most out of this Indiana team, even as they don't have necessarily a huge win. I mean, to be here in this spot, having only lost 1 game, is absolutely as good a job as anybody has done in college football. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think the issue that I have here, laying big numbers with Notre Dame, and this is a big number, right? This is a touchdown plus, is that they just don't really run up scores. I mean, that's just not necessarily what they do. Their offense isn't electric. It's pretty simple, right? I mean, it's just we're gonna beat you to the line of scrimmage. We're gonna run the ball, and sure, it's possible that we could look up and Notre Dame is up 21-0. I certainly wouldn't rule that out, but yeah, I just kind of think that if Notre Dame covers this number, the better bet is going to be the under 51.5. Like I just kind of I could see a way where Notre Dame maybe doesn't cover that number, but it still goes under. I don't see any way that this goes into a shootout, right? And Notre Dame covers 7.5. Like I don't see that at all. So yeah, if I'm going to play something here, it would definitely probably be the under on the total 51.5.
Yeah, I think the under is where I would go to. I think Notre Dame is easily the team that's going to win this game outright. I don't even think that I'm giving Indiana enough credit for the year they've had and what they're capable of. Notre Dame has impressed me this year. After the Northern Illinois game, I mean, they've been a solid football team. Now, granted, they haven't played a team of the level of Indiana, but they've beaten the hell out of just about everybody. And I mean, they annihilated all these teams. So I think the under's the play. I don't know how much Indiana can can give them a threat to actually win, but generally, if you're going to take the points of the dog, take the under.
I am going to be curious to see what happens. If something should go wrong early in this game and Indiana's able to get an early turnover and maybe convert it into points, even a touchdown early on, and Notre Dame has to play from behind in this game, I know Riley Leonard has improved throughout the year passing. I still don't trust that the Irish have enough on that side of the ball that if they're down multiple scores, 10 or more, that they're going to be able to come all the way back. So Notre Dame, I think, has to get out to an early lead, do some of the things they've done to teams by making big plays on defense, splash plays, forcing turnovers, and then they've got an opportunity to really dictate the pace, tempo, and terms in this one, and maybe even cover the 7.5. First game on that Saturday afternoon, December 21st, is going to be a noon Eastern kick in Happy Valley. Number 6 Penn State, who we talked about earlier, against number 11 SMU, laying 9. Look, despite all the Franklin issues that we talked about in the first segment, guys, I think 9 is just about right. If it's come back down to 8.5 in some spots. If this one had gotten out to 10, double digits, I stay away from it. But I think this is a classic example of a lot of Penn State games that we've seen over the last couple of years in particular, where it's uncomfortably close, it's uncomfortably close, it's uncomfortably close, and then there's a late turnover, and Penn State turns it into a touchdown, and they end up winning by 7-10. So I think they can cover the number. They're very capable of doing it, John, but I don't know if I'm going to play it. I think I'd look more at the over 53.5 on this one.
Yeah, Penn State's certainly been an over. There's no question about that. They can score the ball. I think where I come down on it generally is that it's just and you see this, oftentimes it's a big step up for SMU. Like they just have not seen a team that's as physical, that's as tough as this Penn State team. And I realize that we're not talking about Oregon here. It's not the Big Ten champion, but they were in the game, and we know that they're certainly capable. So I just think this is a big step up. I mean, SMU. I don't even know who I would compare. Who would even be the closest to Penn State of teams they've played. I just don't think there's even a close comparison. So it's just and look, I think Rhett is going to empty the clip. I think he's going to pull out all the stops, obviously, and so you could have a chance to be live here at 8.5, but I just really think SMU struggles with the physicality in the run game and just the talent gap. I mean, SMU's way overachieved. Yeah. So I think Penn State 8.5 here is getting home, and like I said, I'll probably end up playing it.
Yeah, I mean, they played Pitt and Louisville this year, and those two teams are – I mean, they're decent football teams, but they're not Penn State. They played BYU. They lost to them, and they're a good team, but they're not Penn State. They just haven't gone up in this weight class.
Yep.
They had some quirky plays in that Clemson game early on that got them, really into their deficit. Once they figured that game out, they were stable, and they were really the aggressors, and they were much better. But I like Penn State in this one. It's a big number. That's a big number. And, while this isn't Michigan or Ohio State or Oregon, it's still a big football game. And for whatever reason, And Penn State really gets kind of screwed here too. You've got a warm weather team that's going to be playing a noon game. It could have been way worse.
It's entirely possible. It's still in the 30s next Saturday at noon when it kicks. And it's very likely, actually. And I do think, look, not to be a homer, but I do think there's a question about a team like SMU and the atmospheres they've played in this year, walking into that building with 107,000 losing their minds in the whiteout and all of that. Like, that's going to take a couple minutes to come down from that level of energy, let things cool off. And if they can't come down from that level of energy quickly enough, SMU, they're going to end up working from behind like they did against Clemson. And the atmosphere at Beaver Stadium is going to be about 10 times what the atmosphere was at the Meineke Car Care Bowl or wherever it was in Charlotte that they played Clemson last week. Third game in the first round. Clemson, speak of the devil, against Texas in Austin, 11-point spread. This is the biggest spread in the first round, and I'll be honest, it's the one I feel most confident in the favorite covering, John.
Yeah, that's interesting because I kind of am the other way on this one.
Baby.
Yeah, because listen, I think Circa opened this, a certain sports book, I should say, opened this at 9, and it's been bet out to 11.5. Now you see that market wide. This mostly stems from my lack of confidence completely in Quinn Ewers. I think the wrong quarterback is started. I think he stinks. I'm just going to say it. I think he stinks.
I don't know if he stinks, but he's not nearly what some people thought he was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
He's not better than Arch, I don't think. And he's relative to expectations, I'll go with you. He stinks.
And I just think the wrong quarterback is starting. Like, I think their ceiling is so much higher. I mean, I would if I'm Steve Sarkisian, I'm pulling a Nick Saban right now, and I'm not even waiting until the half. I'm putting in Arch Manning right now. I'm not doing these gimmick option read stuff. I'm putting him in right now because I think with Arch Manning, even as a freshman, he's going to give Texas a better chance to win the national championship. I just think Quinn has shown too much of a tendency to turn the ball over. He did it against A&M. He did it against Clemson. Just, at this point in the season, I shouldn't have to worry about whether you're going to hold on to the ball, man. And that's why I think Clemson just feels like one of those teams to me that, okay, we didn't belong. You see this in the tournament, in the NCAA tournament, right? We didn't belong. We weren't supposed to be here, like VCU all those years ago. Like, they win the first 4, and then they go all the way to the Final 4. Like, Clemson kind of gives me those vibes a little bit, at least in terms of this number. I think Dabo's going to be able to keep this a very close game. And I actually disagree with you, Chris. I love you. I love you to death. But I think I could find myself on Clemson plus 11.5 here.
The thing with Arch versus Quinn is that, they don't think, I believe, that they can run all the plays. They can use all the playbook with Arch. Quinn, if you go look at all the years he's gotten hurt, every injury he's had, when he comes back from that injury, he stops throwing downfield. And his average depth of target, at least as of 3 weeks ago, was dead last. I can't imagine it's gotten any better.
Right.
After watching it, right? At the last go, I can't imagine it's any better. So he was dead last of all the group of the Power 4 schools, dead last in average depth of target. I mean, he's a nickel dime type quarterback right now.
Mm-hmm.
Arch is the better player. I don't think they can run their full playbook with Arch, and that's why they don't have him out there. But I think Texas is the better team. Clearly, I bet them. I took them to minus the 11 or whatever I got it at. I'm on an island. I'm on Clemson Island.
You are. Yeah.
You are. Yeah, you're on Clemson Island.
You and Dabo. Have fun with that.
No NIL. We have on this island, we have 2 things. We have Jesus and no NIL.
That's how I was going to say. Yeah. No portal. The portal to Dabo Island is not open. It is closed. Nope. It's just the 2 of you.
You got
Nobody else allowed.
Crewnex and Jack Easterby's probably on that island too. Y'all are there.
I will say the one thing that gives me a little pause is that the last time we saw Clemson play an SEC team, and granted it was Georgia, but it was an absolute destruction.
Yeah, Clemson 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 games against SEC opponents, for what that's worth. The final of the 4 first-round games will be next Saturday night. And again, we'll talk about all these games in a little more detail next week as well, but we wanted to touch on them this week to get you ready for them. Tennessee, Ohio State, Buckeyes laying 7.5 at home to the Vols. I know it's a freshman quarterback. I don't like to bet on freshman quarterbacks. But you know what I like to bet on even less than freshman quarterbacks? Quarterbacks named Will Howard. I love Tennessee to keep this an uncomfortably close game all night long and maybe even steal the thing, and Ryan Day to be chased from the horseshoe with torches and pitchforks. I don't just say this as a Penn State fan either. Like, they are on the precipice of things absolutely falling to pieces. The loss to Tennessee would be the cherry on top of the poop sundae that Ryan Day would have to wear on top of his head as he ran out of Columbus. I think at the very least, Tennessee keeps it close, Choppy. I'll let you have the next word on this because I know you're going to be all Vols, Mr. Tennessee, and then John can bring us back to center.
I don't bet on my team. That's rule number 1, right? Rule number 1 of gambling. Stay away from your team.
It's the playoffs, man.
I don't place bets. I don't place bets on my team. But I will say this. Tennessee has the better quarterback. Ohio State has 2 offensive linemen out, and Tennessee's got a really good defensive line. And in these postseason games, the SEC over the years has shown you win the game in the trenches and you win the game, period. Tennessee's got a really good running back. They got a really good defensive front. And they got a quarterback who is, name me the quarterback in this tournament that has the higher upside. Arch?
Arch? There is. That's it, probably. John, 60 seconds. Tell me why we're both wrong and Ohio State wins this game if you can.
No, I don't think you're necessarily wrong, but I know it's crazy to say I just have zero interest in getting involved in this one just because of all. I don't want to bet on Ryan Day. I don't want to bet on Ryan Day at all. And I don't really, the Tennessee offense hasn't shown me enough recently to believe that they can go in there and pull this off. So it's one that I'll watch live. I'll kind of see if I can get a feel for it, but pregame, it feels fair to me, and I just really don't want much to do with it.
Sounds scared, RJ. He sounds scared.
Oh, yeah. My rule is I don't bet on other people's teams. So
there you go. I like that. Yeah.
Bill Belichick's role is if you're going to date a college girl, you might as well take a college job. We talk about that plus Army Navy next right here on BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2,
me! Oh!
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game! We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game! We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
We'll get you our best bets before we wrap up here in a couple minutes on BetQLU, live coast to coast on the BetQL Network every Friday night and Saturday morning. Always available in podcast form as well inside your Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin, I'm Chris Mack. We'll get to the game that probably until Thursday used to be Bill Belichick's favorite college football game every year, Army-Navy, in just a couple of minutes as well. But let's talk about Bill Belichick for just a minute here, guys. 6 Super Bowl rings, 14 wins shy, I think it was, of catching Don Shula for the most wins all time in the NFL, regular season and postseason combined. And he says, no, you know what? I'm not going to let guys like Arthur Blank and whoever else might be interested in interviewing me this offseason cycle to embarrass me. I'm taking the Ram by the horns in this case, and I'm going to become a Tar Heel. My daddy coached there way back when I was a toddler, and I'm going to Chapel Hill. and they're going to pay me big money. They're going to infuse a bunch more money into the program, and hopefully I won't have to deal with moms and leftover lasagna dinners at people's houses. It's a new world. I'll just write checks and bring people in and build a team and coach ball. How long does this last, John?
I don't know what I'd set the under at, over under. Maybe I would have set the over under at
2.5 years.
2.5, yeah, 2.5. I think that feels right, and I would probably say over, because I have doubts, but I do think that Bill is smart enough to where if he's going to take this opportunity seriously, which I believe he will, he'll definitely insulate himself with people that do understand the college landscape, who can handle the NIL portion of it. And I do think he's just going to ride a year, maybe even two, of just excitement, of just infusion of boosters money and NIL and everything like that. I mean, that's such a big part of this move. It feels like it's just generated, unbridled excitement. So I think you probably ride that for 2 years. I don't necessarily think that it turns UNC into some championship contender or anything like that. I think they're probably a ACC contender, depending on the circumstances. But I would say over. I don't think he's the recruiter that Deion is at all. I don't think he's got that juice. But, he will get guys in there that are good football players, and he'll coach good football, and that will mean wins.
He's going to approach it the same way Deion did with portal. He's not going to be building through the living rooms of 17-year-olds. He's going to be building it through the portal. That's the way that just forget football and basketball. If you go look at the other college sports, you don't recruit kids out of high school to the major programs. Do you want a baseball player who's hitting 305 in high school, or one that's hit 305 at JUCO? You're going to take the JUCO transfer. Same thing in college football. You're trying to build a program from scratch. You don't do it at the high school level. You do it at the mid-major and junior college level. That's what he's going to do. And he's going to hope that some of those kids who are 20 years old at 21 still remember him as a relevant football coach. Because he wasn't last year, and he wasn't 2 years ago. And if you're a 17 or 18-year-old kid, the last time Bill coached a good team, you were 12. You probably wouldn't even watch it. So you got to rely on your parents or your own memory. So I think he's got success in him because he's a good football coach, but he's going to have to do it a certain way.
Yeah, the line on North Carolina's win total before all this was at a heavily juiced under 6, I believe it was, or 6.5. It's now up to 7.5, and that definitely is all due to Belichick. And juice to the under still, and I still think they're an under team. I do think they're a 6-win team next year, unless he really works some immediate magic. It'll be more about year 2. But we'll see. I think the theory of he's taking over so that he can leave it to his son after that as well makes a ton of sense. Also,
did you see their schedule? All right,
yeah,
it's TCU, Charlotte, Richmond, UCF, Clemson, Duke, Stanford, Virginia, Cal, NC State, Syracuse, Wake Forest. That last half is pretty difficult. But I mean, you're going to get. You should start off at least 3-0. Maybe you start off 4-0 if you get UCF. But I mean, it's not the easiest schedule he could have had.
No, I think he'll take advantage of the Western teams coming east that have to do that, certainly. But we'll see. I don't think it's definitely not more than 7. I don't think. Anyway, Navy, Army, Navy. Why do people always say Army first? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Army, Navy playing, and Army are the AAC champs. John Martin, I let you have the floor on the AAC champs as they lay 6.5 to Navy in a game that this is the legendary matchup that these two programs live for every single year. Throw the records out.
Yeah, well, first of all, AAC game. It doesn't technically count, but these are 2 AAC teams now. So I do want to get that in there.
Yeah.
If this, I'm gonna play Navy if this touches 7. I mean, I just am. I know they haven't been the same since the beginning of the season. They obviously have been dealing with injuries to the quarterback Horvath. But when he was healthy and he was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling all over everybody. You know, he was doing it over Memphis. He was doing it over and then of course the schedule kind of toughens up. They got to play Notre Dame, and Notre Dame just breaks them, and they just haven't really been the same since. However, we know what happens when these two teams get together. It's always close. It's always competitive. And obviously the biggest reason why is that there's that familiarity. I think Navy has enough in the arsenal offensively, enough sort of in the playbook with what Drew Cronick is doing that Army will have some success, but I think Navy will too. I think they bring a different dynamic with the quarterback and the passing ability that, again, I think there will be Army love, and I do think this will touch 7, and when it does, I will be playing Navy plus 7. If I have to play Navy plus 6.5, I will, but I think I will get a 7 by game day.
Yeah, I don't touch the lines in these games, in the Army-Navy game, generally just because these things are so close. But, there was a time, and I'm old enough to remember this because it was last year, where you couldn't get this total low enough. Yeah. And I think it's too low now. These two teams have very good offenses. I think 39 it's a sucker bet. It's got to be. But I'm a sucker, boys and girls, and I'm betting it. I'm taking the 39, and I am going over. And I never bet overs. I hardly ever bet overs. I am a bet the under, bet the dog kind of guy. But I am taking the over in this one. That is for dang sure.
Yeah, I
don't hate it.
I'm inclined. I don't hate it either, and I'm inclined to go in with you. Maybe this is our squad bet. Maybe this is our collab.
We got a collab. One more collab.
Let's collab.
The playoff. I like it.
Yes. Collab on the over, Army-Navy, over 39. The number's just
and then it's going to be 3-0 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
and that's when we blame it all on Choppy, just like 100%. We would normally do anyway.
He talked us into it. It's all his fault.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Me.
I mean, I'm not taking any responsibility for the thing.
He writes us into his trust and will. That's all I would say, right?
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I will write you in to my trust and will. Very well done.
There are a bunch of other bowl games that are impossible to handicap, really, that maybe we can get into in greater detail in the next week or so when we start to get a better idea of all the opt-outs, all the portal players that won't be available, the coaching changes that happen over the next week or two as well. We'll obviously keep you up to date on all of those, but we only got a couple minutes left. So we'll save hoops for when we've got more time to talk hoops in greater detail. Let's just get people our best bets for, and maybe there is a hoops game in your best bets. I don't know. What do you got, Choppy? I'll let you start us for Army-Navy week when we've only got that game on the slate. Very little else. Maybe you've got some playoff futures. What else are you looking at?
No, I really, my best bet this weekend is the Army-Navy over. I think that's the one I'm going to go with. That's my best bet for this weekend. I haven't dived in. I know we can, I could do an NFL game, but I haven't really dived into that just yet. So let's go with the Army-Navy over on that.
John?
I like my guy Choppy. I love him. It's Friday night. And he's like, I haven't gotten into the NFL slate yet. I just absolutely love it, man.
I'm a late arriver. I get there late. I get there late.
Everyone else is in a rush to figure things out, and then the paralysis by analysis hits. Choppy needs one look. Just one look, John. He gets one good look at a game going into the weekend, and then he tells you what he thinks.
That's right. My guy's like, I'm going to bed Saturday night. I'll see what the lines look like on Sunday. I love it.
Absolutely.
You're a beast. Look, here's the thing. It's hard for me to give this bet out just because it's changed so much, but I still think there's meat on the bone, so to speak. Memphis minus 4.5 against West Virginia in the Frisco Bowl. That's on Tuesday. It's one of the first bowls. West Virginia obviously has no coach. They're going to probably have some opt-outs. They already have a few. Memphis, on the other hand, it's a return for Seth Hennigan to his neck of the woods in Texas there. He's from, the Dallas area, the Fort Worth area. Everybody's playing for Memphis. Everybody's a senior. This is their last go-around. And motivation is just the key in these games. It's the difference. Memphis super motivated. West Virginia not. Give me Memphis here. I'm still fine with 4.5.
They may just let McAfee coach the game at this rate. They're all in on the nostalgia act, bringing Rich Rodriguez back, and we'll see how it goes in Morgantown. I'm going to go in on a bowl game as well, the LA Bowl, which is Wednesday night. UNLV lost Barry Odom to Purdue, right? Head coach leaves. Looks like offensive coordinator Brennan Marion probably leaving as well. He scrubbed all his social media this week of any UNLV mentions. So I imagine he's either headed to Purdue with Odom or just looking for another gig. I still think the move on this thing was way too much. Cal was not a good team this year. 6-6. UNLV was a good team, even if that's just by Mountain West standards. Still good against pretty much everyone other than Boise State, right? So they're getting points now. They actually, the travel's fairly equidistant between these 2 points. It's probably less actually for UNLV going to LA to play Cal. So give me UNLV getting 1.5 points. I think most of the personnel will stay intact if the coaching staff is not, and they still know how to do what they've done throughout the year. Give me UNLV and the points against Cal in the LA Bowl. We'll break down more bowl games next week. We'll continue to look at the first round and beyond of the college football playoff, all right here on the BetQL Network. For RJ Choppy, for John Martin, and producer Zach Kroll, I'm Chris Mack. This has been BetQLU.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3.
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game! We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, pick it in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you